Okay, a very new and exciting area of molecular biology is gene therapy, which is basically people with genetic diseases having a functional gene inserted into their genome using reverse transcriptase or viruses. Um, and it has been treated, it has been done, clinical trials, with people that have severe combined immunodeficiency disease, and these basically people that have to live within a bubble because they don't have an immune system. And in those children tested, 15 of them um, were able to successfully incorporate the gene into their system. But there were 3 of which who developed leukemia due to the therapy. So something with the genes caused the malfunction within the genes, which caused cancer. So it is a transitioning therapy, but there's a lot of promise there, but a lot more research needs to be done as well. Agriculturally, there are actually most of our foods, most of our vegetables at least, have some sort of genetic therapy um, going on within them. There is a plasmid called TI, or tumor-inducing plasmid, which is a vector used for implanting genes into specific crops. Um, and this is obtained from Agrobacterium tumefaciens, which normally infects broadleaf plants. This is a bacteria. But you can use part of the TI to integrate into the plant DNA, and then other genes can be attached to it. For example, um, the genes that will help be resistant to certain pesticides. But this doesn't work in cereals such as corn, rice, and wheat. It will work in broadleaf plants such as tobacco um, and some other agricultural products. So herbicide resistance then is one of those areas where they treat with TIs to get the genes within certain crops. And then they are resistant to the herbicide glyphosate. And that way, rather than weeding, they can just spray with this. Glyphosate is the main ingredient in Roundup, or so you also often hear of these crops as being Roundup ready. And you can just basically spray them with the Roundup, and they will live, and everything else will die. Nice thing about glyphosate is it breaks down in the environment, so you don't have to worry about it contaminating other things. Another area where they insert genes would be for certain insecticides. Insecticides are just like Roundup, only they kill insects that would eat plants. So a toxin from Bacillus thuringiensis has been used. Corn or maize is the second most common genetically modified crop globally. The third area is stacked crops, which is just using both Bt producing or glyphosate resistant. A third area then, so insecticide and herbicide genes. Another one would be to induce genes that release certain vitamins. So, for example, golden rice is rice that's been genetically modified to produce the precursor to vitamin A, which is beta-carotene. And this couldn't be done by conventional methods because all rice that we have, none of them has this vitamin precursor within it. What is nice about it, this was done and is available free with no commercial entanglements like Roundup. It's owned by a company called Monsanto. And so anyone can grow golden rice and there's no problem with that. Whereas Roundup Ready plants are a big problem, have been involved in a lot of lawsuits. Marker-assisted breeding is another area where genes can be used within crops. It basically combines our classical methods that we talked about. Oh, sorry, the methods we talked about in molecular biology with classical breeding methods. So classically, you would breed the largest two strawberries um, and plant those, and then they would grow larger strawberries. So you basically just artificial select for things. But now you can extract DNA from leaves or from other tissue within the plant and be able to do DNA analysis um, and then decide which of those genes you are most or selecting for or against, and then plant the seeds that have those genetic markers. Okay, very similar to what we talked about with pre-implantation genetic diagnosis in humans. There is a lot of controversy surrounding genetically modified organisms, um, especially, well, it's just now kind of gaining traction within the news in the United States. In Europe, most genetically modified foods are banned or have to be labeled. Um, and the idea is because the safety of these plants is still unknown. They seem to be safe, but the long-term effects, because everything is so new, um, are unknown. And then the other danger might be that these genes that we're genetically modifying and putting to plants might transplant somehow to wild relatives, and then that would give those plants, herbicide resistance or something, and then they would be unable to uh, weed them out if necessary. There's not a lot of evidence for this, but it is theoretically possible. Another great use of biotechnology is called biofarming. Farming with the pH, which has reference to pharmaceuticals. In 1990, human serum, the albumin, this is a protein found within the plasma of your blood, was able to be produced in tobacco and potato plants. And we have a couple other things in development: recombinant subunit vaccines against Norwalk and rabies viruses being produced through plants, and also antibodies against tooth decay causing bacteria. So by eating these foods, you would also be developing resistance to tooth decay. Alright, the last thing we're going to talk about is transgenic animals, and these are animals that have been given gene therapy. This hasn't had a lot, it's a lot harder to incorporate genes in animals than it is in humans, but some systems have been successful in it. And again, they've combined techniques used in farming or agriculture or livestock, and added some of the techniques used in molecular biology to produce transgenic animals. One example has been in trout or in salmon. They can genetically modify salmon so that they grow faster and then are bigger and produce more meat. But the main use so far has been engineering animals to produce pharmaceuticals and milk. So this is also technically biofarming. Alright, so those are the techniques of molecular biology, manipulating proteins, mRNA, and DNA that are currently in use. And there are also much more that we didn't really go over that you won't be tested on. But if you read the chapter in the book, you will discover that there's a lot of other things going on as well, that are more or less complicated than this. Alright, that's all.